What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. I'm your host, Mike Tagliere, back with you guys for Week 15. We have just a couple more weeks of this, and that's the end of the fantasy season, sadly. But for those of you who are here, congratulations. You might be in your final, or you might be, in the semifinals of your fantasy championships. But yeah, we're here to answer all the sit-start questions that you guys have. Whatever questions you guys have, DFS, Dynasty, I don't really even care. I'm here to answer as many questions as I can for you guys today. Just know that we always start out with talking about the injuries that have kind of taken place for the week, because some people, this is their information hub for the week, and they just want to get an idea as to the players that are in and out of their lineup and what to expect for those that are replacing them. So I'm going to run through those really quick. If you guys could do me a favor while I'm doing that, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, because we are going to be doing things throughout the NFL playoffs, talking about DFS. We're going to be covering rookies throughout the offseason. We're going to be doing so much in the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to not miss any of that content. But yeah, let me start with the injuries for today. The guys that are going to be out: Jordan Howard, that's not really a big surprise. Alexander Mattison is not playing. Not that you really wanted to start him anyway, but it just means a higher touch floor for Dalvin Cook, which was already high to begin with. Juju Smith-Schuster, he suffered a setback in practice. He is not going to be playing today. That means James Washington moves into the slot. It upgrades him a little bit. I'm still not excited about playing any of those guys against the Bills. Mike Evans, obviously you guys know he's not going to play for the rest of the year, so you can drop him in fantasy football if you haven't already. DJ Chark, he is out. He's someone that he might play next week, but we're not even sure about that. I wouldn't drop him quite yet, but he's not playing. That means Chris Conley, his target share, I would imagine that Chris Conley is going to see 7+ targets today. D.D. Westbrook obviously gets a higher floor. Leonard Fournette's already involved in the passing game. So, but yeah, Chris Conley is definitely the biggest beneficiary there. Calvin Ridley went to IR. Marvin Jones went to IR. Alshon Jeffrey went to IR. There's a lot of wide receivers out this week. Those guys are all droppable, obviously. Nelson Aguilar not going to play. Didn't practice all week. Was announced out yesterday, which means that Greg Ward, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, those are going to be the starting wide receivers for the Eagles again. It's really tough to trust any of those guys right now, but the matchup is obviously very good. Evan Engram, he's not going to play again. He's trying to make his way back, but there's no guarantee he plays at all for the remainder of the season. Greg Olsen's still out after suffering that concussion. Gerald Everett is out, which means Tyler Higbee gets another start, which means he's in the tight end 1, tight end 2 conversation. And it's a fine matchup against Dallas. It's not a great matchup, but it's okay. And then Vance McDonald is also out. So, I don't think anybody wanted to play Vance McDonald. Highly questionable are Damian Williams. He is not expected to play. I don't think that's come out as official inactive yet, but I don't think Damian Williams is going to play. That game is one of the games that's going to be impacted by weather between Denver and Kansas City. Apparently, there's a winter advisory in Kansas City right now. They're expecting by tomorrow, anywhere from 6 to 10 inches of snow. It's going to start snowing during that game. I don't know how much it's going to affect it just yet. It's really tough. I'm not a weatherman. I don't pretend to be, but that should impact the passing game a bit. But yeah, just know that. Bo Scarborough, he is questionable for this game. They actually called up a running back from the practice squad, which is never a good sign. It's a terrible matchup against Tampa Bay. You're probably better off going with someone else. T.Y. Hilton, he's actually someone that's progressed throughout the week. Unfortunately, he does not play until tomorrow night. So if you're trying to count on T.Y. Hilton, you kind of need to have another player from that game to back him up. So if you ask a question about T.Y. Hilton, make sure to let me know who you're choosing between, obviously, and then if you're able to grab somebody from that game, because that's going to impact the decision quite a bit. And then questionable, but expected to play. Derrick Henry missed practice all week, but they're expecting him to play. Josh Jacobs, I don't even want to get into Josh Jacobs. I'm a little worried about him, but he's playing through a fractured shoulder. Apparently the MRI came back okay, but I still think they dial back his workload with nothing much to play for. I know they have a 1% chance to make the playoffs, but it's not happening. James Conner, he is playing today, but they're saying that it could be more of a timeshare than usual, which kind of should have been expected. So I have him as a high-end RB3 in that matchup rather than the must-play, low-end RB1, high-end RB2. Julian Edelman, he's dealing with multiple injuries. I do expect him to play against Cincinnati, but understand that there's a few injuries that have popped up. Will Fuller is expected to play off that hamstring. Tennessee is missing 2 of their 3 starting cornerbacks in this matchup. It's obviously a good one for Fuller. It's a good one for Hopkins. And then Noah Fant, he is expected to play as well. He's going through a few injuries, so there's a whole lot of injuries this week, guys. So just understand that. We have to go through what we go through, right? And that's what I'm here for. So if you guys have some players dealing with some injuries, that's probably what I'm going to be asked the most about today. So let's get started. Understand that I'm not skipping over any questions. I basically answer them as I see them. And yeah, so I'm not purposely skipping over anyone. But if you guys do ask a question, understand that if you put more than 3 names in there, I'm going to skip over it just because I want to get to as many people as I can, and I'm not looking to set your entire lineup. So if there's more than 3 people, I have to skip it. I'm sorry. All right, let's see. Aiden asked Eli or Goff. I'm probably going to say Eli here. I don't like Jared Goff this week against Dallas because basically Jared Goff is a guy that if you play him against bad teams, like bad pass defenses, you do pretty well because he has played pretty well in those matchups. He's given you a decent floor, not necessarily a massive ceiling or anything because he doesn't rush and he's not a guy that's going to throw the ball. He's not going to throw 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. It's not who he is. So I am going to go with Eli in that one. I just feel like the matchup is just too good to pass up against Miami. There's a lot of avenues for points, but the Giants haven't been able to run the ball. I just feel like Eli's floor is safer and his ceiling might be a little bit higher too. Blake asked Miles Sanders, Raheem Mostert, or Joe Mixon as standard. That one's really tough. I have them all in a similar area. I believe Miles Sanders, he might be the safest because that's a game that they should be in control of. They should be able to give their running backs 30 touches in that game. They're obviously missing a bunch of wide receivers. Raheem Mostert, that game could be higher scoring than people think, but against the Falcons, I think opposing running backs have averaged just 25 touches per game. Obviously, in a 3-way timeshare, that's a little bit worrisome. Mostert might end up with 12 to 14 touches. There's no guarantee that he scores, which is worrisome. And then Joe Mixon, obviously the matchup against New England, they've allowed 1 rushing touchdown on the year. I'm probably going to go with Miles Sanders here. I just feel the safest, and he comes with a decent ceiling. So I'll go with Miles Sanders here. It's really close because all those guys are in the same tier for me. Brian asked, half PPR, need 1 for flex. Kareem Hunt, James White, or Raheem Mostert? There's going to be a lot of people asking these questions today, I think. So Raheem Mostert over Kareem Hunt. I'm going to go that way. And then James White or Raheem Mostert in a half PPR. This one's tough for me because I want to believe in Sony this week against Cincinnati because they're a team they're just not very good against the run. But, I mean, he hasn't got it done. They could go to James White. He's a guy that got a lot more carries against Houston. But this just feels like it should be a Sony game. It really should. I'm going to go with Raheem Mostert because all these guys are in the territory that are probably going to get. I mean, Hunt, I would say he's probably going to be in the 8 to 11 touch range. James White, probably similar. And then you have Mostert, as I mentioned already, 12 to 14 maybe. So I'm going to go with Raheem Mostert here. He's the lead back there. We can't say the same about the other two. Gary asked, Winston or a safer floor with Rodgers? What is Rodgers' floor? I would go with Winston. I've kind of gone back and forth between those two, and I finally moved Winston above Rodgers inside the rankings because this game is freezing cold in Green Bay. I mean, I think that the temperature is what it feels like is 7 degrees. It's not great for a passing attack. We haven't seen Rodgers finish as a top 10 quarterback very often this year, and when he has, it's been in matchups that you can almost predict. The Bears defense is not what it used to be. I think that's fair to say, but they are getting Akeem Hicks back this week, which should help the pass rush. It does help guys like Khalil Mack on the edge. So, I mean, Rodgers' floor is 12 fantasy points. It's pretty low. Jameis Winston is a risk-reward play. You have to understand that when he's playing through a fractured bone in his hand or his finger. And but at the same time, if they're letting him play through it, if he's playing through it, obviously he's fine. He came back in the game last week and threw just fine. So, I'm going to go with Jameis Winston there. I just think that sacrificing maybe even a little bit of floor is worth it to gain the ceiling that Winston gives you. Kyler or Baker? I have Baker higher this week. I just feel like Kyler, I start looking at the matchups and how the players have played for Kyler Murray. You think Christian Kirk plays the perimeter about 85% of the time now, and that's Greedy Williams, Denzel Ward. It's a tougher matchup. Then you look into the slot. Larry Fitzgerald hasn't been playing particularly well. That's where the Browns can be beat. But knowing that the reason that I bumped Kyler down below Baker is just because Kyler hasn't been rushing ever since this whole hamstring injury. He has been removed from the injury report, which is beneficial. I would say Kyler probably has a higher floor, but I think the floor for Baker is worth sacrificing for the ceiling. So I'd go with Baker there. Half PPR, flex spot, Gallup, Debo, or A.J. Brown. So those in the industry would probably be saying A.J. Brown because they're sold on him for whatever reason. I mean, I'm not completely sold on A.J. Brown as someone who's a must play. I have him in wide receiver 3 territory. I think Debo Samuel might be the one that I would go with here. The Falcons' cornerbacks in the perimeter are not particularly good. Gallup, the matchup there, I don't know what the Rams are going to do with Ramsey. Some people are assuming, I'm looking right now at the Chiefs field, by the way. I see it in the background. The Chiefs, it is snowing a lot. if it keeps snowing like that, that will impact the passing game, by the way. So just want to throw that out there. I legitimately just saw a picture of Arrowhead Stadium. Let's see. But yeah, I'd probably go Debo there. I think that game's going to be higher scoring than people think, because San Francisco, the reason they hadn't thrown so much at the beginning of the year was because their defense was playing elite shutdown defense. They're missing over half of their starters on defense this week. Like, so many important players, and that's in the front seven, the secondary, everybody. There is so many players missing on that team that I just feel like it's going to be a higher scoring game than people think. And Deebo Samuel matches up well with those cornerbacks there. So I'm going to go with Deebo of those options. Good luck. D. Davis, Patrick Mahomes, or Ryan Tannehill. So looking at what I'm seeing right now, I'm starting to think Ryan Tannehill. So I was adjusting ranks this morning, and I knew that they were talking about that winter advisory going on in Kansas City, but I didn't really. Sometimes that stuff is overblown. Sometimes we don't really get to see what's happening. But again, I just saw the field, and I did look at the weather, and it's supposed to snow throughout the game. I just didn't know how bad it would be. Looking at what it looks like, I moved Mahomes down. He was at 5. I had Tannehill at 6. I might go Tannehill there. It just feels like the safer play in terms of you're getting a fantasy floor with him, because even if he doesn't have it going through the air, he has, right? You know, so many people talk about, oh, he's only averaging 25 pass attempts or whatever it is per game. But if he hadn't been so efficient, he would be throwing the ball more than that. So that's the thing. If he doesn't have it going through the air, he can use his legs. I like the matchup there against Houston. So I think I'm going to go Tannehill here, knowing what I'm seeing in Kansas City right now. It just doesn't look very good. Let's see. Kevin says Eagles or Steelers defense. I have those guys. I have them right next to each other. I guess we'll go with the Eagles. That's really tough because Dwayne Haskins he's been a gift for the opposing. Man, I that one's so tough. I don't think you can make a wrong choice here, but I'll go with the Eagles defense just because I don't think it's possible that Dwayne Haskins throws up 20-some points on the Eagles, whereas Josh Allen could surprise and run for a couple touchdowns against the Steelers. So I'll go with the Eagles. Let's see. Valzan, hey Tags. Hey, thanks for doing this. Of course. Thank you guys for being here. And if you haven't already, click the like button. Really does help us out, guys. Can you advise in the one of the three? Miles Sanders, Raheem Mostert, Devontae Parker. You're leaning Sanders currently. I think you're right in leaning Sanders. Someone asked earlier about Sanders and Mostert and someone else. I did go with Sanders just because I feel like the floor is higher with him. You can guarantee more touches for him in that game. Devontae Parker, it's in a standard, so wide receivers don't get as big of a bump. That's another game. That's the only other game that really has some weather that I'm really letting impact my decision making a little bit. The weather in New Jersey right now, New Meadowlands Stadium, is they're saying that there's going to be 23 mile an hour winds with 31 to 35 mile an hour gusts. That's a little worrisome for a passing game, and it really can affect them. Ryan Fitzpatrick's straight up, he doesn't care. But so I do like Parker, but I think Sanders is the safest play there. The chosen one, A.J. Brown, Raheem Mostert, Devontae Parker, pick 2 PPR. All right, so in this one, I'm going to go with Mostert and Devontae Parker. Again, A.J. Brown, I don't know if you guys know this, but A.J. Brown has not recorded more than 46 yards in back-to-back games. Obviously, he's coming off a massive game, and I don't think that you can automatically say that he's not going to get 46 yards this game, but it's just going to show the inconsistency, and the target share has not been very consistent. It could just as easily be a Corey Davis game, and it wouldn't shock me at all. It could be a Jonnu Smith, Derrick Henry. You know, I do like A.J. Brown, but not enough to start him over Parker or Mostert. David asked Manning or Goff. Yeah, I answered that one already. That was Manning for me. Let's see. Jeffrey asked Baker Mayfield or Jameis Winston. I have Baker slightly higher. I don't know if Baker comes with the upside that Jameis does, but Jameis, again, playing with that fractured finger, playing without Mike Evans, there's a lot of variables in that one where, and they're on the road in Detroit. Now, that game isn't a dome, which is always nice around this time of the year, but there are some variables, and Jameis, let's not pretend that he's been super safe and reliable all year. Baker hasn't either, but the matchup against Arizona, everybody scores fantasy points against Arizona. I can't remember the exact stat that I had, but I'm going to pull it up. So there have only been 3 quarterbacks who have not scored at least 18.3 fantasy points against Arizona, and no quarterback has scored fewer than 13.5 fantasy points. So it's like the floor for Baker in this game is massive, and the ceiling, obviously, you know, if he gets it going, it is high. There's been 5 different quarterbacks, actually 5. Holy cow. 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 different quarterbacks who have finished top 6 against the Cardinals this year. I wish I would have put that in the primer. I didn't realize it was that many. Let's see. Travis asked Melvin Gordon or Mostert PPR. I'd go with Melvin Gordon. It's a tough matchup, but he's involved in the passing game. He's locked into nearly as many. I would say he's a lock for as many touches as Mostert's ceiling is. Mostert, I don't see him getting more than like 15 touches in a game just because Breida is there, Tevin Coleman's there. I'm going to go with Melvin Gordon. Which one would you bench? Full PPR. Sanders, White, or A.J. Brown playing against Tannehill? Thanks, Tags. So Sanders, you don't want to bench. The floor is there, and is playing against Tannehill enough to make me say that I want to play A.J. Brown over James White in a PPR? I don't think it is. It's close. It really is close, and I get that. But knowing that Tom Brady is struggling so much, knowing that Julian Edelman's dealing with a couple injuries, they don't have wide receivers that are producing right now, and Brady's not throwing well down the field. James White is involved in the passing game, and he's given a floor every single week. I think there's been one game this year where James White has scored fewer than 10 or 11 PPR points. So in a PPR, I think I have to go James White for the stability. But A.J. Brown, I understand why you're thinking about it against Tannehill, but it's really tough for me to go Brown over those guys. Slick D, Beckham or Samuel? I'd play Odell. I just talked about Baker and the fact that if I'm expecting him to have a big game, it means Jarvis and Beckham have to be a part of that. And I mean, I understand he's been a disappointment, but I've highlighted some stats inside the primer that highlight he hasn't been as bad as some people think. The reason that people are mad at Beckham is because they spent a first-round pick on him, right? And when you do that, you have high expectations. He hasn't lived up to those expectations. He has, however, been like a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. And if you talk about guys that you usually have in that area, they go against the Cardinals, you're going to play them as a borderline wide receiver 1 because that matchup has just been giving. So it's tough for me to bench Beckham, even though he has been a disappointment. Anthony asked Debo or Samuel. That's funny. So I'm guessing that's Curtis Samuel. I'm going to go Debo for sure. Curtis Samuel, he has plenty of upside, but it hasn't been unlocked because Kyle Allen can't complete the deep ball. Sadukar asked Cooper or A.J. Brown. I'd play Amari. So if the Rams trust Jalen Ramsey and Amari Cooper one-on-one, Amari can win that matchup. Amari is just as good as Jalen Ramsey is, if not better. Amari is a phenomenal route runner. Playing at home in the dome, it allows his footing is very good, and that's phenomenal for route runners, and that's why Amari Cooper does so well at home in Dallas, because it's that field is made for route runners, right? So it's going to be tough for Jalen to hang with him all game. AJ Brown has just been too volatile, right? I understand Cooper. Some people think that, but Cooper has put up numbers the last 2 games against Buffalo and Chicago, 2 much tougher matchups. Ed Gardena, full PPR, played DeAndre Washington or Sony Michel. Oh, I'm going to go with Sony on this one. I mean, I understand it's frustrating, but the Patriots, basically, if they want to go anywhere in the postseason, they need to get their run game going. They really do. And I think Bill Belichick is just too smart not to do this. Where the matchup against Cincinnati, it doesn't make sense for them to air it out. It really just doesn't. DeAndre Washington, I like him a little bit more than most, but you need upside. You really do. They had Lamar Jackson. You need some upside in your lineup because if let's pretend that Jacobs plays the whole game, he crushes DeAndre Washington's potential, and you're just left looking at it. And maybe Sony Michel scores 2 touchdowns. That's very possible. So I'd go with Sony. Let's see, Rokon, Patrick Laird, Kenyon Drake, Austin Hooper. Pick one in a PPR. I feel like Laird is probably the safest choice, but I don't want to pick him. I almost want to pick Austin Hooper here because, I do know that the 49ers are without a lot of their defense. If you're looking for a floor, I'd probably say Laird is the safest pick. If you're looking for a ceiling, I would go with Hooper. Bill asked, thanks for all the work that you do and Bobby do. Thank you. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it. We do it because you guys consume it. And if you guys didn't consume it, we wouldn't be doing it. James Conner or A.J. Brown in standard. I'm going to go Conner. Even if they have a timeshare, the game against the Bills, the way that you move the ball against the Bills is on the ground. They're a team that does allow plenty of rushing touchdowns, dating back to when Sean McDermott became the head coach. Since he became the head coach, it's like over a span of like 40 games now. They have allowed, it's either exactly 1 per game or just over 1 rushing touchdown per game on average. So I'm going to go with James Conner. I just have to go him. A.J. Brown just a little too inconsistent for me. Laird or Drake PPR, I would go with Patrick Laird. I just feel like it's safer. David Johnson's role has grown the past couple weeks, and we've seen Chase Edmonds now come back, and it's obvious it's not the greatest matchup against Cleveland. I'm going to go with Patrick Laird. I just feel like the floor is higher. You may not get the ceiling with Laird, but the floor is just too low with Drake, I think. Pete asked, Mahomes and Snow or Baker, Tannehill. So, okay, in 2 leagues that you have the same choice. So I think I'm going to go with the other guys. I think I'm going to go with Baker and Tannehill. I mean, Mahomes, we've seen teams like the Patriots, right? We've seen Tom Brady and Bill Belichick take advantage of the snow. It does help some passing games, right? It really does, because the defense has no idea. Think about it, right? If you're running in the snow, who has the advantage? The guy that knows where he's going, or the guy that doesn't know where he's going, in terms of, like, if you're in man coverage. And the Broncos do run a lot of man coverage. So, I mean, that helps the Chiefs, but at the same time, it's like, their speed is compromised, right? Like, Tyreek Hill's speed is lackluster. Sammy Watkins' speed, Mecole Hardman's speed, all those things, like, are scaled back a little bit. This is one of the toughest decisions, and it really sucks that this is happening in Week 15 of the fantasy playoffs. But I think I go with Tannehill and probably Baker. I just think that the floor is high with both of those guys, and even if you sacrifice a little bit of ceiling, that's okay. I think I go with Baker and Tannehill. Josh Cohen, James White, or Josh Jacobs, half PPR. I'm going to go with Jacobs. I understand that when you play Jacobs, there's a lot of risk this week, because he can go out there and get hit and decide that he's in a lot of pain and just not play through it. That's very possible, but I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs here. The matchup's so good against Jacksonville. They might not even touch it. Maybe he gets the first carry and he takes it 70 yards for a touchdown, and his shoulder is fine. It doesn't even matter what happens the rest of the game, because he scored for you. Jacksonville's defense has been that bad. Let's see. Robinson in the freezing cold, or Gallup, or A.J. Brown. I'm playing Allen Robinson. The Bears and the Packers are used to playing in the cold, so this is nothing new for Allen Robinson. He's been fine in the cold. I'm not really worried about Allen Robinson so much against the Packers. Let's see. James White or Cortland Sutton. Man, this is tough. I mean, if I knew that field was better, I'd probably be saying Cortland Sutton, just because I'll take the upside there. But I don't know. That one's really tough. Let's go with James White. I mean, the floor is so, like, if that snow is as bad as it looked in that picture that I saw, like, it's not a picture, it was a video. If it's as bad as I saw, it could be a game where Cortland Sutton sees 4 targets because they throw the ball 18 times and he catches 1 for 13 yards. I don't want to do that in the fantasy playoffs. I'm going to take the floor. I'm going to go with James White. Why are you so low on A.J. Brown and Mostert compared to other analysts? I explained all that stuff inside the primer. I've talked about A.J. Brown quite a bit on the podcast. I talked about him on the show. But basically, it's all about inconsistent target share. A.J. Brown is a guy that I loved coming out of college. I felt like he was a complete guy. I felt like he was someone that really... I almost wanted to see them play like a Juju Smith-Schuster type role in an offense where he could break tackles. He's a big guy. He's not necessarily the fastest guy, but he can break tackles. He's been relying on a lot of yards after the catch. He's going against 2 veteran cornerbacks. Well, I don't want to say veteran. Jonathan Joseph's a veteran, and Garyon Conley. They have been better on the perimeter as of late. So it's just the inconsistent target share has not been great. And Houston is not as great of a matchup for wide receivers as some people think it is. And then Mostert, it's just the limited touches to go around. It's a 3-way timeshare, man. I mean, they have slowly been decreasing the amount of touches that go around to their running backs. And now, granted, they're expected. I don't expect it to go this way. They're expected to blow out the Falcons this week. They're favored by 11 points, which is like one of the biggest spreads in the week. I don't think that should be the case. I really don't. I think that game could be high scoring, but it's all about the touches. And I just don't know. I can't say that Raheem Mostert, I cannot confidently say, and if you think you can, then be my guest, you play him. But I cannot confidently say that Raheem Mostert is going to get more than 12 to 14 touches. I cannot do that. And because of that, he falls a little bit. There's some upside there for sure. If they give him the clear-cut starting role and give him 18 touches, yeah, he's going to play well. But I can't guarantee that. Sit 1 full PPR, Jacobs, Pascal, McLaurin. I think it's got to be Pascal. And the reason I'm saying that, so Jacobs, obviously the matchup's great. McLaurin, matchup's phenomenal. We have to worry about his quarterback play, right? But I'm going to go Pascal here. I think you have to sit Pascal because T.Y. Hilton's expected to potentially come back. He's been trending in the right direction. He wants to play. So I think I go Pascal because he would lose that target floor. Like there are not games where multiple Colts wide receivers see 8+ targets. And so I think I'm going to go and sit Pascal of those guys. Let's see. Jason asks, good morning, Tags. Good morning. A full PPR flex, Darius Slayton, Anthony Miller, or Tyler Higbee. All right, so it's between Higbee and Slayton for me. Anthony Miller's matchup in the slot against Green Bay is not very good. Tremont Williams has been very good in the slot. I don't think people realize that, how good he's been. Darius Slayton is very much a boomer bust option because the Dolphins, for as much as like the Dolphins are not a good pass defense, teams just don't have to throw the ball a whole lot against them. So we haven't seen a whole lot of wide receivers finish as top 30 options. Let me see. The amount of wide receivers, there have been 14 wide receivers all year. 14 wide receivers all year who have finished top 30 against the Dolphins. So now we have Golden Tate, we have Sterling Shepard, we have Darius Slayton. There's just like a whole bunch of so basically we're talking about one wide receiver per game is what they average, is what they allow. And it's typically a pretty big wide receiver performance. And then everybody else just kind of falls back and, is mediocre. There's a whole lot of risk with him. I might go with Higbee just because I feel like it's a safer play with Gerald Everett out. And that way, you're protecting your Woods. Those guys have been getting too many targets lately. So I'm probably going to go with Higbee of those options. It's just really rare because I typically don't do that with tight ends, but I just feel like he's the safest one. James asked Miles Sanders or A.J. Brown. PPR, I would go with Miles Sanders. Again, A.J. Brown, understand, I'm not saying A.J. Brown's a bad play, guys, but when it comes to the fantasy playoffs, do you want to be left there looking, hold on a second, I'm going to pull him up real quick because this is a part where I feel like I need to run through the reasons why A.J. Brown is a very risky play. I've talked about the fact that ever since they traded for Gary and Conley, the Texans, they've been a lot better against wide receivers. A.J. Brown, he has not seen more than 7 targets or more than 8 targets all season. Here's his targets over the last 4 games, okay? So his role has grown for quite some time, but it's been so inconsistent. 4 targets, 5 targets, 4 targets, 7 targets. There is no way that you can guarantee production on that. I already mentioned that he doesn't have back-to-back. He doesn't have 46 or more yards or 40, in back-to-back games. Doesn't have it. So it's really tough to rely on him for consistent production. I have him in the boomer bust wide receiver 3 range because I understand there is some upside there, and he is a rookie that's growing into a role, that's developing that chemistry with Tannehill, that's grown in the offense with Tannehill. I get it. But when you're seeing those few targets, it's really tough to remain consistent. And I just don't want to play him over guys that I know are going to produce. They may not come with the ceiling that A.J. Brown does, but they do come with a higher floor. All right, let's see. What do we got? Sterling Shepard or Danny Amendola, full point PPR. If you're looking for a floor, I'm going to go Amendola. If you're looking for a ceiling, I'd go at Shepard. That's basically how I feel about that. Like there are some players that you have to understand what you're playing for, and Amendola against the Bucs, it's such a good matchup. And with Marvin Jones on IR, he has seen 8 targets in each of the last 2 games with Marvin Jones out there. Shepard, obviously, has he fallen behind Slayton? We don't know. It's really tough to say that based on last week's performance, but I would go Amendola for safety. Let's say that you play Lamar Jackson and Mark Ingram, I would probably play Shepard and try for the upside. Luke asked Russell Wilson or Ryan Tannehill. I have Russell Wilson higher. Russell Wilson is not someone that I'm particularly worried about today. The Carolina defense they're struggling. I know they allow a lot of rushing touchdowns, but I mean, on the year, Chris Carson, I think he's scored like 3 touchdowns. It's because they get down to the goal line and Russell Wilson's just so deadly accurate. They don't feel the need to run the ball as many teams do. I feel like he bounces back after his 0 touchdown game. I like Russell Wilson quite a bit this week. Let's see, Noah Fant or David Njoku. I have Njoku higher just because Fant is dealing with multiple injuries and that game is played in the snow. There's a lot of factors that are going into that, but Noah Fant could leave the game early because he's dealing with those injuries. The field conditions are not great for someone playing through injuries, so I'm going to go with David Njoku in a matchup against Arizona that, I mean, let's just be honest, everybody smashes against Arizona. All right. I have Tyreek, Godwin, and Odell. Currently have Odell on the bench, but with the snow, thinking of swapping Odell for Tyreek. That's a risk. I have not fully assessed that game and re-ranked the players based on what I've seen from the snow. I don't think that I'm going to put Tyreek Hill behind Odell because, again, playing in the snow has some benefits for wide receivers as long as the coach is willing to throw the ball a little bit. And is Andy Reid willing to throw the ball a bit? We'll see. It's really difficult for us to say. But I don't know if I could bench him for Odell because Odell hasn't offered much of a ceiling. I do like Odell this week more than most analysts do, but I don't know if I could take out Tyreek for Odell, unfortunately. Julian asked Galladay or Mixon in standard. I'd play Galladay. Mixon. So here's the thing with Mixon this week. like his ceiling, his absolute ceiling would probably be like 80 total yards and a touchdown. That's his absolute ceiling. His floor, it could be 30, 40 yards, no touchdown. And that's really worrisome. Whereas Galladay, with no Marvin Jones playing against Tampa Bay, that team is just so bad. And I understand David Blau is not very good at football. I get that. But Kenny Galladay is going to get targets, and because they're not going to be able to run the ball. And by the way, Ben Scarborough, I talked about at the beginning of the Bo Scarborough. I talked about him at the beginning of the show, saying that he might not play. We don't know for certain if that has popped up. I'm going to look and see if I have any updates on that. No updates yet, but I'm sure I will be getting those soon in regards to the inactives. Let's see. Sutton or McLaurin? That I would go with Sutton. Because there is risk in the snow. I get that, and I'm going to move Sutton down for sure, but I'm not going to move him down below McLaurin, because McLaurin, I mean, we've seen what's happened, right? Like, the matchup is good, but it also requires Dwayne Haskins to get him the football, and that's been a troubling thing. So I'll go with Cortland Sutton, just because he's the guy that's been producing. McLaurin or Parker, non-PPR, I'd go Parker. Same reason. I mean, I like Parker. It is windy there in New York, or New Jersey, I should say, but not enough for me to take McLaurin over Parker. Raphael, morning tags, good morning. Full PPR, Danny Amendola or John Brown? In a full PPR, I think I might go with Danny Amendola, and that sounds crazy. In a half PPR, I have John Brown slightly higher, and that's the rankings that we do at Fantasy Pros, and then it spits out the PPR after that. But John Brown has a one-play upside type like ability. The matchup is brutal against Pittsburgh, in Pittsburgh. I think Amendola comes with a higher floor. Brown comes with a higher ceiling, but I think the floor is worth it with Danny Amendola. Stefan asked, sit one, McLaurin, Kirk, Slayton, PPR. I would sit Slayton of those guys. Again, so I've talked about that and the fact that Slayton is a very boomer bust option this week against Miami. It is a good matchup, and I'm not saying it isn't, but there's a lot of mouths to feed there. They do have Saquon, they do have Golden Tate, they do have Sterling Shepard, and Slayton basically is going to require those big plays like he had last week, and it can happen for sure, but he just comes with plenty of risk, where he could be a guy that walks away with 3 catches for 30 yards. That's possible too. So I'd probably say Slayton is the one that goes to the bench. Tannehill versus Winston, I would take Tannehill. He's just playing too well right now. Winston, there's some risk, obviously, with his finger. Bodega, Miles Sanders, Aaron Jones, Mostert, pick 2. Aaron Jones is definitely one of them. Definitely one. I mean, the Bears are missing both Roquan Smith and Danny Trevathan. Both of their starting inside linebackers. That's obviously not ideal. They are getting Akeem Hicks back this week, which is going to help. But I still play Aaron Jones. And then I'd play Miles Sanders over Mostert just because I can guarantee touches for him in terms of like the matchup and the way that the offense is run and the other guys in the team. And I mean, if Mostert struggles to start that game, Matt Breida comes out and breaks a long run, they could go with Breida for the rest of the game. Like, but that's the way it's been. It's Shanahanigans. We talked about it with Mike Shanahan back when he was a head coach, and it seems like it's a similar thing with Kyle. But yeah, I would take the guaranteed touches. Let's see. Are you worried about Devontae Adams versus cold weather? No. No, dude. Like, the Packers and the Bears play in cold weather all the time. I would not start those guys over him. Absolutely not. So yeah. Guys, I understand it's cold weather and stuff, but the Bears and Packers, if there's any teams that you really shouldn't worry about that so much, it's those guys. Like, the Bears and Packers play in cold weather over half the season. Oh, I should say the last third of it. Half PPR, Mostert or Montgomery. Thanks for all the hard work. I have Montgomery higher, and I know that there's some people that would tell me that I'm crazy and that, all right. We have inactives and actives. Derrick Henry, active. Will Fuller, active. Jameis, active. Julian Edelman, active. Fant is active. Bo Scarborough is inactive. Damian Williams, inactive. Devontae Parker, active. Jimmy Graham, active. So the big news here is that Bo Scarborough is not playing. Hopefully you guys were not relying on him this week because it was a terrible matchup against the Bucs. If I had to pick someone to walk into that role, I'm guessing it's Ty Johnson because they're going to have to use him a bit in the passing game, but it's not pretty. He's still in the RB4 territory. Let's see. But yeah, I have Montgomery higher than Mostert. Montgomery gets all of the goal line work for the Bears, and the Packers, if there's one place that they've really struggled, it's against the run. They have struggled against perimeter wide receivers too, but I'm going to go Montgomery there. I just don't see any way that he doesn't get 15 touches in that game with the goal line work and a good matchup. So he's not game script dependent either, right? Like they still involve him in the passing game. Mostert, again, there's just so much. There's a lot of risk there with Mostert. And Atlanta, by the way, has not been a great, like, it's basically an average matchup for running backs. People like talk about Atlanta like, oh my God, you have to play running backs against Atlanta. That hasn't really been the case. Like, it's been an average matchup for running backs. It's nothing great. Again, Mostert and AJ Brown are kind of in similar territory for me, right? Like the way that I'm talking about them is that they have limited opportunity. They've been talked up. They're coming off big games, and people want to trust that. They want to believe that it's going to continue, but we don't play last week. We look forward and we say, what is the big sample size of what we've seen so far? And what we've seen is that Raheem Mostert, has he had a game with more than 14 touches? Like, I'm going to pull it up because now I'm frustrated because like I didn't realize that there'd be so many Raheem Mostert questions this week. I did know he was coming off a big week. Let's see. Last week he had 12 touches. The week before that he did 21. That was against Baltimore. Outside of that, you'd have to go. There's one game over 12 touches. I know that he's earned a bigger role. I get it, but he has one game over 13 carries. And Matt Breida was inactive for that game. I just want to make that clear. That's like a big thing because Matt Breida is actually, he gets touches every single time he's in the lineup. Matt Breida does get touches, and he deserves them too. I get it, but it's like, it's the same thing. Like, understand what you're risking. I'm not saying that Raheem Mostert's a terrible start. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that he comes with risk. So does AJ Brown. All right, let's see. Pick one. Tags, pick one. Standard league. A-Rob or Mostert? A-Rob concerns me with the temp you mentioned. Yeah, the temp, again, I'm not so concerned about the receivers there. It's just enough to maybe, like, if you're torn, like, completely between two players, I'm going to play Allen Robinson. He's basically the key to move the ball. He had over 100 yards against the Packers in week 1, and he should have had like a 200-yard game if Trubisky had played even halfway decent. PPR, Devonta Freeman or Patrick Laird? I'd go with Devonta Freeman. I've talked about, so they should have similar floors, to be honest, because Devonta Freeman is getting plenty of touches. Patrick Laird's getting plenty of touches, but Freeman plays for a higher scoring offense. He can run the ball. You can run the ball in San Francisco if you want to. Especially knowing that they're missing. I'm if I'm not mistaken, I think they're down 6 starters on defense from what their defense started out this year. Let's see. Mitch asked Tyreek, Thielen, or AJ Brown. Full PPR. I'd play Tyreek. Yeah. Ozzy, full PPR, pick 2. Julio Jones, Devontae Parker, and Josh Jacobs. Thanks in advance for the help. I love Julio this week. I know a lot of people are worried about him. I'm not. So this comes down to Parker or Jacobs. If Jacobs is playing, I think I'm going to play him over Parker. Parker, the worry is that he wasn't really heavily involved in practice. They didn't know if they'd have him. I don't know. I can't say they can do a game plan without him because they don't have enough wide receivers to do that, or other options. I do like Parker, but I think I'm going to take the guaranteed touches with Jacobs over Parker. Sony Michel or Danny Amendola? Is it a PPR? If it's a PPR, it's Amendola for sure. If it's a standard, I might go Sony. Sir Romeo, the boss, Cooper Kupp or AJ Brown, I'd play Cooper Kupp. If there's one weakness against the Cowboys right now, it's over the middle of the field in the slot. Jordan Lewis is not very good. He's been kind of promoted into that role because of injury, and that's the weakness basically of that Dallas defense. So I think Cooper Kupp's the play. I know he had limited snaps last week, but I'm gonna assume that was a 1 week thing. Wide receiver, full PPR, Kupp and or Woods with Diggs and Debo. I would actually play Kupp and Woods probably over. Well, I'm not going to talk you out of anything. I'm going to tell you. You ask Kupp or Woods. I have Cooper Kupp higher than I do Woods this week. Campana 351, pick 1, full PPR flex. D.D. Westbrook, Marlon Mack, Mike Williams. I like Marlon Mack a lot more than most do this week, and a lot of people have asked me about that and why I do. And it's one of those things that I've had to question myself on over and over. And because when I'm so much higher on a running back than the consensus, it's a little worrisome. But it basically comes down to the fact that the Saints have lost both defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins and they lost defensive end Marcus Davenport, and those guys are big parts of the run stopping defense. They obviously impact the pass rush too, but without Rankins in the lineup, they were without him for the first 3 weeks of the season, and then they were without him last week when he got hurt at the start of the game. They've allowed, I think it's almost 6 yards per carry without him in the lineup. So it's a much better matchup without Sheldon Rankins there. And with that offensive line for the Colts, if they want any prayer in that game, they're going to run the ball and try and play keep away from Drew Brees. So I like Mac quite a bit. In a full PPR, he does lose some value. Mike Williams, I think, has massive upside in this game. The Vikings are terrible on the perimeter. They've allowed 23 different wide receivers to finish with wide receiver 3 or better numbers. And 19 of them have been perimeter wide receivers, which Mike Williams is. I like Mike Williams quite a bit, but the floor isn't high enough with his targets. D.D. Westbrook obviously gets... Oakland has been playing better against the slot as of late. To start the year, they were terrible against the run. Or against the slot. They could not stop it, but they've been better as of late. I'm going to go with Marlon Mack here. Give me the guaranteed touches. Richard asks, he tags full PPR, Gallup or Kirk, who has the highest floor. I would say that Kirk has the highest floor and probably has the higher ceiling too. Gallup, number 2 wide receiver on his team. Kirk's the number 1. He's been getting a higher target share every single week. Gallup is like a guy that you could lock in for like 6 targets, whereas Kirk is like 7+, and the matchup is better. So I'd say Kirk comes with the highest floor. Jared Goff or Kirk Cousins. Oh, that one's tough. I might go Goff in that one. Because the Dallas pass rush hasn't been as good without Leighton Vander Esch out there, and he's not playing this week. So I'll go Goff. I'm not excited about it, though. Jimmy G or Winston. I have Winston. Looking for a birthday win tags. Thanks. Hey, happy birthday, Bumblebeats. Happy birthday. But I play Winston. Because if for whatever reason the 49ers do win by the spread that Vegas is predicting, they're 11-point favorites. I don't agree with it, but it is what it is. And if that does happen, then Jimmy G is not going to pass the ball a whole lot. That would limit him. Like, he just has a lower floor than Winston. And the ceiling is probably, I'd say Winston has a higher ceiling against Detroit. Francisco, hey tags, who do you like more this week, Miles Sanders or Phillip Lindsay? I think I'm going to go Phillip Lindsay on this one. I'm still a little bit worried about the game script because once the Chiefs I was expecting once the Chiefs took the lead in that game that they would start going more to the passing game, and Royce Freeman has been running more pass routes than Phillip Lindsay. But again, with the weather the way it is in Kansas City right now, I think I'm going to go and say Phillip Lindsay. Emmanuel Sanders or Devontae Parker? I think I'm going to go Parker in that one. Yeah, I think I move Parker just ahead of my rankings. I think they're right neck and neck, but I would go Parker. Wentz or Trubisky? Wentz. Yeah, Wentz. I know he's missing wide receivers, but, so going up against Washington, they're like one of the worst teams in the league against tight ends. He has 2 of the better tight ends in Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. So I'm going to go with Wentz there. I don't necessarily like Trubisky very much against Green Bay. John asked, tags, this is a hard one. Kyle Allen or Josh Allen? No rushing points till you get to 50 yards. Wow, that's a weird scoring system. In that case, I might go with Kyle Allen. Because Allen, I don't know if he's going to rush for 50 yards against the Steelers. And if you take away his passing, I think I'm going to go Kyle Allen in that one. That's weird, man. That is an interesting scoring format. I've never heard of that. But I would go Kyle Allen. Tate or Ian Thomas for the flex half PPR. I would go with Golden Tate. Miami's been burned over and over in the slot. I like Tate quite a bit this week. And Ian Thomas coming off a big week, obviously, and I don't mind him against Seattle. Seattle is not a great team, particularly against tight ends, but at the same time, it's 1 week sample size. I don't want to go off that. So I'll go with Golden Tate there. Half PPR pick 2, Thielen, Parker, Okay, there's way too many there, Kyle. I'm sorry, I have to skip over that. Need 1, non-PPR, Fuller, James Washington, Jared Cook. I'm going to go with Fuller. So Tennessee is missing Malcolm Butler. He was obviously hurt and put on IR a few weeks back. Adoree Jackson was out last week. He's out again this week. I don't even know if LaShawn Sims is playing, but it doesn't even matter. They're down 2 of their 3 starters, and Will Fuller obviously had this... if he's playing, he's fine because they've kind of taken their time with him. They're not rushing him back at any point, so I would go with Fuller. I just think that the ceiling is well worth it, and his target share has been there. Can I start both Matt Ryan and San Francisco defense in the same game? Nope. My opponent has Julio Jones, and my only other option is at quarterback is Trubisky. Yes, I would play Matt Ryan over Trubisky. You kind of have to play the best players available to you, and yes, I do believe that you can play both of them. San Francisco should still be able to generate some sacks on Matt Ryan. He hasn't been particularly protected that well all year long, and so the points scored is one thing, but forcing Matt Ryan to pass, which he should have to quite a bit, it does generate the opportunity for turnovers. So, yeah, I think you can do that. But, I mean, if you're asking Matt Ryan or Trubisky, I'm playing Matt Ryan. Pick 2 of 3. Oh, sorry, that one skipped over. Sorry. It's Kyle asked half PPR, Thielen or Parker. Thanks again. I would go with Parker in that one. Adam Thielen is someone that I'm not comfortable putting him inside my top 30 wide receivers this week. I'm really not. Coming off. It's basically almost, it feels like 2 months, the absence that it's been. I don't think it's been actually 2 months, but it's been probably at least a month and a half. And in a brutal matchup against LA. LA has been really good against the pass. Getting Derwin James back a couple weeks ago obviously helps. I think that's a heavy Dalvin Cook game. I just don't think they throw the ball a whole lot. I'd take Parker. Zane asks, Shepard, John Brown, or Devonta Freeman, flex PPR. I'd go Devonta Freeman. Give me the guaranteed touches. Again, so the Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, even Golden Tate a little bit. I'm worried about those guys because I feel like one, maybe two might do some work in fantasy, but I feel like the other one is going to massively disappoint, and I just don't know who that is between Shepard and Slayton. I do like Tate the most, but Devonta Freeman. Chris asks, PPR, Keenan Allen or Devontae Parker? Yeah, this is a question that one of my buddies asked me this morning, and I told him it's hard to pass on Keenan Allen versus Minnesota. So Minnesota has been better against the slot. Mackenzie Alexander has been their best cornerback this year. He defends the slot, which is where Keenan Allen plays half of his snaps. So it's half of his snaps, but then half of it's on the perimeter. Keenan Allen's target share is just way too high for me to pass on him against Minnesota. So I'm going to go with Keenan Allen over Parker in a PPR. Jeff asks, Sutton, Debo, or James White half PPR? I'm moving Sutton down. I don't know how far yet. I haven't adjusted the ranking based on the snow that I'm seeing just yet, but that one's really tough, Jeff. I'm sorry. I wish I could be more helpful, but Sutton in the snow, again, I have my concerns about that being like a 2-catch game for 30 yards. Debo Samuel, I do like. He matches up extremely well with the Falcons cornerbacks. James White comes with a higher floor. I think I go James White here. I just feel like the floor is too high. And again, if San Francisco does jump out into a lead against the Falcons, we're going to see a lot. We're going to see a run-heavy attack, so it could limit the targets for Debo. So I guess I'll go James White and just take the floor. I know I'm kind of babying my way out of that one, but that's where I go. Cooks or Sanu? Can I say neither? I feel like there's better options in the waiver wire. Like if Chris Conley is available, I'd play him over them. If Danny Amendola is available, I'd play him over those guys. Ew. I mean, if I had to pick one, I guess it's Sanu, but I don't feel good about it. Tags, please be my hero. Laird, Washington, or Murray? Laird. Yeah, Laird's the guy that I would go with of those guys. The floor is there for Laird this week. Atlanta Falcon 11, thank you for everything. Thank you. Pick one. James White, Sony, or Laird PPR? I'm going to go with James White. James White is given a floor. As I mentioned earlier in the show, I think there's one game this year where he has fewer than 10 PPR points, so the floor has been there. The ceiling hasn't been as high as we would like, but let's not pretend that Patrick Laird gives you a ceiling. The Dolphins don't score very much. They can't run the ball. Sony Michel has been too volatile, especially for a PPR format to trust, so I guess I'll go with James White. Curtis asked Kirk or OBJ in a half PPR. I'd go Odell. And I know that's not a popular opinion, but that's what I would do. Standard League pick 2, Tyler Lockett, Devontae Parker, A.J. Brown. Give me Lockett and Devontae Parker. I like Lockett quite a bit this week. I think he bounces back. Jay Luna tags Hooper or Cook. Cook seems like he's going to play off the concussion. I'm going to go Hooper. I mean, with Calvin Ridley out of the lineup, it's really difficult for me to say that you can't play Hooper. I know that San Francisco's been really tough against tight ends. They really have. But we did see Jared Cook catch 2 touchdowns against them before getting knocked out of that game in the first half last week. And again, they're missing some players in their defense. They're like a lot of players. Like going through them, like D Ford is out, DJ Jones is out, Richard Sherman's out, Jaquiski Tart is out. They obviously lost Quan Alexander this season. There are so many players in that defense. Kawan Williams, their slot cornerback, is out. He's dealing with a concussion. That's why I think there is 6, maybe even 7 players in their defense that are not playing. Let's see. Brandon asked, Adam Thielen or Darren Waller? I'd play Waller for sure. Yeah, Waller. Tyson Owens, Dede or Gallup, full PPR. I have Gallup slightly higher. I feel like in a full PPR, Dede is probably the safer option, but Gallup comes with a higher ceiling. So if they have Jalen Ramsey shadow Amari, it would put Michael Gallup against Troy Hill. Troy Hill has actually been playing very good lately. Now, he does see a lot of number 2 wide receivers, and that obviously makes his stats look a little bit better. Gallup is one of the better number 2s in all of football. So I have Gallup higher, but Dede would not shock me. If you're looking for a floor, I think Dede is probably the better play, but I in a vacuum, I'd say Gallup. Oh, let's see. Ronnie Price, Cohen, Washington, Scott, 1 point PPR. I'd play Cohen. Yeah, I'd play Cohen of those guys. Jason asked Pascal or Gage PPR. I'd still go with Pascal in that one. Yeah, Gage is fine. And again, with Kawan Williams, the slot cornerback out for the 49ers, that obviously boosts Gage a little bit. But he hasn't been a guy that's been seeing consistent targets, and I can't say that changes right now. I know Calvin Ridley is out, but that doesn't really change Gage's role as a slot receiver. Let's see. Alejandro, Raheem Mostert, or Austin Eckler? I'd go with Eckler, personally. If it's a PPR, I go with Eckler. If it's a standard league, I'd probably go with Mostert. Michael asked OBJ, AJ Brown, Gallup, pick 2 standard. Thanks, Tags. Of course. I'm going to go with Odell Beckham and AJ Brown here. That's where I'll draw the line, where I think AJ Brown does belong over Gallup because there's obviously risk with him too. So OBJ and Brown for me. Jackson asked, hey, Tags, need one for standard scoring flex spot. Patrick Laird, Kareem Hunt, or Raheem Mostert. So Laird over Hunt for me, and then Mostert versus Laird. I'll go with Mostert in that one, because they both should come with floors. I've talked about the ceiling that I'm worried about with Mostert in terms of like his touch count, but Patrick Laird has very, 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 very limited upside in that offense. So I'm going to go with Raheem Mostert. Let me get some water here. All right. OBJ or Sutton in PPR. I would go OBJ, especially with the snow going the way it is. It was really close before, but I'm going to go with OBJ. Andrew asked Sony or Connor standard flex. I'm going Sony. Screw it. Basically, both of these guys are probably going to need a touchdown to be good. That's basically how I feel about it. So I'm going to go with Sony in the matchup against the Bengals. I mean, think about it. You're playing a running back versus the Bengals or a running back against the Bills. Connor is rumored to be in somewhat of a timeshare. They're going to limit his touches based on the injury history he's had this season. So I'm going to go with Sony here, and I'm going to take the risk with Sony and play him over Connor in a standard league. Pick 1, Aaron Jones, Mostert, or Marlon Mack, half PPR. Aaron Jones. Clayton, Mixon, or Mostert, standard. I'm going to go with Mixon, I think. Full PPR. It's really close between those guys, though. I'm going to pull it up. Let me see. I have them right next to each other. Yeah. Oh, man. I think I have to go Mixon, but it's really close. I understand the question. Let's see. Full PPR, Metcalf, Tate, Michelle. And a full PPR. Metcalf's matchup on the perimeter is not as good as Tyler Lockett's in the slot this week. Metcalf's going to see a lot of James Bradbury. Bradbury's been pretty good. Tate matchup is great, and Sony Michel in a full PPR, he doesn't appeal to me. So I think I'm going to go with Golden Tate here in a full PPR, Andre. Elia as standard, Goddard, Howard, or Njoku. Thank you. Yeah, these guys are all in this similar tier where I just feel like they're borderline tight end 1s, high end tight end 2s. Goddard is the one I have highest because he's been the most predictable. He has seen a decent target share. The Eagles are without a lot of wide receivers. They're going to keep him in the block quite a bit, but at the same time, he should get targets. O.J. Howard has massive upside against Detroit. The matchup is good against Detroit. Howard obviously has seen an increased target share with no Mike Evans. That's going to increase, but we can't say that. It's almost like that rational coaching thing where we expect rational coaching, and Bruce Arians hasn't done that with the running backs, so I don't know if I could just automatically assume it with Howard. And then David Njoku popped up on the injury report with a knee injury, didn't play a full complement of snaps last week. That's my concern with him, so I'm going to go with Goddard here. Thomas Wright, PPR 2 from Hopkins, Adams, Lockett, and Allen. All right, you put 4 in there, but I've already read it, so I'll just go through it. Hopkins, you're playing automatically, like he's playing, and you're in Adams. Hopkins and Adams. I like Lockett quite a bit, but I couldn't sit him. I couldn't sit Adams. Rob asked Eagles versus 49ers. Oh, defense. I'm like looking at him like, what? Eagles. I play the Eagles. Half PPR, pick 1. Anthony Miller, Curtis Samuel, or Danny Amendola. Amendola would be my pick. Ira asked KC or Philly D. That one is I really do like KC, but I'm gonna go with Philly. That snow can do some weird things. It's really tough, but I think I'll say Philly still. How safe is James Conner? Play him over White or Lockett? He's not really safe. He's really not. They're saying that he's going to have a limited work role. Buffalo, the matchup isn't particularly bad against Buffalo, so I don't want to sit here and tell you that it's a terrible matchup because that, like, if you want to beat Buffalo, you do it on the ground. But knowing that he comes with some risk, I wouldn't play him over Lockett. I'll take the risk with Lockett to play him to get the upside. And then as for James White, his floor might be higher than James Conner's. Like, even if Conner does score, let's say he gets 50 yards and a touchdown, that's 11 points. I mean, I don't know how much he's going to be involved in the passing game. I think I got to go James White here. I think so. Justin asked, pick 1, full PPR flex. James Washington, DeAndre Washington, or David Njoku. All right, so DeAndre Washington's really interesting to me. Is someone that I think can still be potentially played with Josh Jacobs back, because Washington gets some touches in general, but he doesn't. Do I play him over David Njoku? Man, this one's really tough. I might just go with Washington and play it safe, because Njoku, if he plays 20 snaps again, he might be like a guy that's left out. It's really tough because Arizona is just so giving against tight ends. This one is really risky. If you want to take some risk, go with David Njoku. If you're feeling lucky today, go with David Njoku. But if you want to play it somewhat safe and still get some upside, DeAndre Washington's the safer one. Let's see, Brashad Perriman or Miller. Brashad Perriman is probably where I would go in that one. Cortland Sutton or John Brown. I think that's a situation where I'd probably still go with Cortland Sutton. Jeff asked Diggs or Conley. Diggs. I'd still play Diggs over Conley. I like Conley quite a bit, but not as much as Diggs. Aaron Holmes, half PPR, Lockett or Mostert. Oh, man, you're killing me. I like Lockett this week. I really do. And a lot of people are going to... So if you were to ask, like, if you were to use our Who to Start tool on Fantasy Pros, you'd probably get a 90% Mostert on that one. I kind of want to lean Lockett. I understand that there's some risk there because he hasn't been the same player since hurting his leg. But the matchups have also been relatively tough. Man, I feel bad. I'll go Mostert here, I guess. It's so close. I feel like Lockett's going to have a big week. I'm going to say that flat out, but Mostert does come with guaranteed touches. Mostert or A.J. Brown, I would go with Mostert. Matt Beatty, Gallup, Shepard, or Perriman, half PPR, pick 2. Gallup and Shepard would be my picks for sure. Jamie asked Emmanuel Sanders or Slayton. Emmanuel Sanders would be my pick. A. Gomes, WTF. What is Why? Pick 2 PPR. OBJ, Slayton, or Melvin Gordon. You're benching Slayton of those options. Lane, pick 2. Keenan Allen, Woods, or Melvin Gordon. Oh, in PPR, Keenan Allen's number 1 for sure. And this one's really tough between Woods and Melvin Gordon. I've always said to lean the guaranteed touches, so I'm going to go back with that. I'm going to say Keenan Allen and Melvin Gordon. Stoller, Joseph, Wentz or Baker. I'd go with Baker. Knowing that Wentz is missing so many wide receivers, it's going to limit his upside a little bit. So I'll go with Baker. Carrie asked, thanks for the help tags. Thank you. Kareem Hunt, Singletary, or James Conner, PPR. I would go Singletary. It's not a great matchup for him, but at the same time, the volume has been there. He's been getting plenty of it in the PPR format. He does catch passes against the Steelers. He's going to have to. So yeah, I'd go with Singletary of those guys. Let's see. David asked PPR, Watson or Winston. I'd go Watson. Yeah. Austin asks full PPR, pick 2. Cooper Kupp, Devontae Parker, or Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones would definitely be 1, and then 2, I'd probably go Cooper Kupp in a full PPR. The matchup against Dallas, they should be attacking the slot there. So, yeah, that that is going to wrap up another full episode, guys. I'm sorry, my voice is like about to give out here. If you guys did enjoy the live stream today, please click the like video. It does help us out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But yes, best of luck in your week 15 matchups. Obviously, I know it's a huge week for you guys, and the last thing I want to do is get anything wrong. So best of luck. Hopefully I answered things in depth so that you feel better about your decisions. But in the end, go with your gut. If you're torn on something, go with your gut, because in the end, you can live with that, right? You don't ever want to be questioning, say, oh, I should have went with my gut. I should have done this. So best of luck, and I hope to see you guys next week. Until then, lights out.